Hello and welcome back to the channel. It's a very hot and humid weekend in the UK today, so hopefully be able to get plenty of work done without disruption and interruption from rain and the sound of it on the roof. But where did we leave off last time? I finished just gluing a little extension on this panel shelf, and that was so that I could make it both long enough and wide enough. I'd miscalculated how much I was going to be short on its width. So first job to do is just to smooth off all of the glue overruns, then mark it out, cut it down on the table saw, and then I can crack on with panel raising. So that's the programme of attack today. It's going to be quite a busy one because I've got to shift all of this and actually make sure I can remember how to use the panel raising bit on the router. So let me just tidy up the glue from last week, and then we can crack on cutting it down to size. I've eventually got to where I need to be. I made the mistake of, when I'd finished with the router last time, I left the cutter in the machine, and so I realised I'd actually got to clean everything up, so that's taken my time. But it's also given me the opportunity of thinking through the next part of the project. Now, I don't know whether I'm going to be able to do what I initially intended. I don't know whether you can see the plan on screen. Whatever, I will put a picture up of this later. But the doors, I've originally thought that I wanted the top rails of all four doors to have a curved section, just to make it look a little more special. And that's now the point where I'm not sure whether I'll be able to do it or not. The reason being, using the panel raising cutter on the router, that's going to pose no problem. I can go round curves with the cutter. The problem is with the rail, and I'm not quite sure how to do this. I'm not sure, well, I'm pretty sure that with the piece of railing, if I cut a radius in there so that, I mean, that nominally is 50mm wide, and I'd originally planned for the radius to take that down to 25mm from the edge. So it would be a nice gentle curve, yes, but I want the panels, after I panel raised them, to go into a slot. And I don't think I'm going to be able to cut the slot in that radius. So what I'm going to do is just take a test piece through the panel raising cutter, just to remind myself of how wide that channel needs to be. Then I can look at what cutters I've got and see if there's a way round it. Now, just as I'm speaking, I'm thinking, do I actually need the channel in that radius? The corners where it meets the stiles, yes, I do need the channel in that little section, so from each end. But do I actually need it in that radius there? So, as I say, I'm just going to cut a test piece on the panel raise, just to remind myself of how big the cutter is, because it is actually the monster in my toolkit. It's 65mm wide, and I'm limited to 12,000 revs because of its size. So let me just get that set up. I've already set what I think is the height, so I'll put that through and then we can have a look from there. Right, that has just reminded me of how big and how powerful this cutter is, and I just tried taking too much off at once, so I'm glad I gave myself that reminder. Let me reset things. So that means bringing the fence forward, so I'm not using the cutter all the way, and it like that, it's left me with a very rough cut. So that was a much better cut, much more even, and a lot smoother as well. So just like that, what's the width of the tongue? That's 5mm. So I think that's where I'm going to be keeping everything, because when I had it going all the way in, the cutter came right out to here, which is .32mm, and it actually gave me a depth for the tong. Well, that was about 6mm, so that felt much better. Now that's given me some idea. Now what I'm going to do is have another go with another piece of scrap wood, just to settle my own mind. So that has produced a lip of 6mm. So let me just, from that front edge of the top cutter, it is how far? That's actually 7.5mm. So if I take it back slightly, and that has made the gap what? That's made it 11, so let's see how that goes. So this will be the second pass. That's made. Oh, excuse me. So that's 5mm, and total depth on the other side is 31mm. So that went through very nicely. Now what I'm going to do is, that's the side I've just cut. I'm just going to do one test cut at 90 degrees. Now that has shown me very clearly that that is where the cutter finishes, just there. So that piece is flat. So that's the actual width of the tong, which is 5mm. That's cut very nicely actually, where the fence is situated. So I think that should be all right. Now what I've decided to do, from a previous project, going back many years, I made a couple of doors with the top round, and that's actually the template that went with that. That's the sort of thing I want, because it's got the width of the tenon, and then there's a small gap before the radius starts. That's the sort of thing I want. Now that's the wrong size for both sets of doors, but it's given me some idea. Now whether I go ahead and do this or not, it will come in handy as a learning experience. So what I've done, move these little bits out of the way, I've cut 2 pieces of ply corresponding with the length on the plan of the 2 door rails. So cupboard number 1, between the 2 stiles the length will be 280. Cupboard number 2, the length between the stiles will be 375. So that's what those are. And I'm just going to mark out and then cut these radii, which means I won't be starting to cut any of the raised panels this afternoon, but at least that's set and that's all ready for work next time, hopefully. So I'm going to mark off these and see whether it's actually feasible to go down this route. Right, now I've got, so far I've marked the start and end of the radius on both sides. I've marked the middle and the height, so it's 25mm from the end and it's 25mm up, and I've done that on both pieces. I'm going to finish there because this is going to take a little bit of working out and I don't want to scupper the project at this stage. So yeah, not quite got as far as I wanted today, but at least I have made some progress, and we'll come back to this later in the week. So yeah, all it means now is pack up, try and make the workshop a little tidier, and thanks for coming along with me. And please let me know your comments, good, bad, indifferent. If you've got any ideas, I'm always open to hearing those, and I certainly want to thank you for the support that you're giving me, and I'll see you next time.